It's the end of an era to see a band like them hang it up. They've been doing it longer than we have, which is
Right.
unbelievable. And they're at the top of their game. They're playing better than ever. And
What's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome back to the Punk Rock Review podcast. I have an incredibly special person sitting across from me today. This is Jim Lindberg, the singer of Pennywise. Man, this is crazy, dude. Like, my life is so wild right now. I live in Houston, so I'm pretty far away from all the major, hubs. We've got our own thing going on down here in Texas. But what's up, Jim? How's your day going, man?
it's going good. Just got back from a 2-week tour of Europe. Played a bunch of shows down there, a couple with NOFX, a couple festivals. Played some shows with DFL, our friends in that band. Now we're home for a couple weeks, and then we go and play another Punk and Drublick with NOFX in Portland. And then we go to Quebec for a couple festivals, and then we're home for the summer. So
Nice.
I'm
Dude,
ready to be in the house for a while.
Oh, I imagine so. How bittersweet is the NoFX stuff, man? It's kind of like super amazing, and at the same time, because I was at their last Texas show, went to Dallas to see them play, and was like, I had a great time, but on the drive home, it was like, that's weird that I'll probably never see that again. Like, I've seen them play a lot, man. That's a wild one.
It's we've been joking pretty much every show. We've been joking that this is all a big hoax. That they're going to come back in a year and charge twice as much ticket prices. So a big scam. But from what Mike says and from talking to them, it's the real deal. And it's the end of an era to see a band like them hang it up. They've been doing it longer than we have, which is
right,
unbelievable. And they're at the top of their game. They're playing better than ever. And I guess that's how you want to go out. You don't want to go out when you're just sucking.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they played incredibly well. I thought Mike's vocals were really good in Dallas as well. I've seen them play a fair amount of times, and it wasn't always the same quality, unfortunately. I mean, that's kind of hard to, guarantee that every time with just being human, and especially with vocals and things like that. So, but yeah, June 1st, man, was the 25th anniversary of Straight Ahead.
Yeah.
That album is incredible. I was happy to talk about it. Me and my buddy that did the show together, we just kind of we look at the end of the year, we look at a list of everything that came out, with specific anniversaries, and we kind of plan out our first and second quarter of what we're going to do. And we were excited to talk about Pennywise. We're excited to talk about Punk and Drublick tomorrow. We're covering on the show. It's hitting its anniversary here pretty soon too. So that's how you saw that, which kind of surprised me that you saw that. But
it's funny that the way that I came upon it was Chris Daly, the drummer for Authority Zero, posted something, and he said, happy 25th anniversary to Straight Ahead album, and how it was one of his favorite albums. And so I went like, damn, has it really been 25 years, and why aren't we doing anything for the anniversary? So I actually did a search. I'm like, Straight Ahead 25th anniversary, is anyone talking about this? And you guys popped up, so I was like, well, at least someone knows what's going on.
Shit, yeah, man, that's a fantastic record. I honestly, when you told me that, I was surprised. I thought that there would be a lot of folks, but I mean, in 2024, it's the people that are my age don't want to do the same things that I'm doing. I mean, I run into that a lot. People that are from my exact age group are like, yeah, I just don't want to do. And I get it. It's a lot of work, man. I'm fortunate enough to have the supportive wife and the job that allows for this to become my career. So I can spend a lot of time making a lot of videos and covering bands that I love. Somebody's got to do it, man. This stuff can't go fading off into the distance. I'm not with that, man. It's got to stay on the front of our minds. But I love that record, so I was happy to talk about it.
Yeah, man. It's with when you get to the age that we're at, all these anniversaries kind of start piling up on top of each other, and you're like, okay, which
Yep.
album was going out. We did for I believe for the 20th anniversary, we did an Australia tour where we just played the Straight Ahead album. So that was pretty
Yeah.
much the only thing we've ever done. That was a lot because the Straight Ahead album has a lot of songs. It's pretty brutal. And so I just remember going down there and going like, man, how am I going to do this whole show? There's so many words to remember and the songs are just blazing. And it was a lot. I remember looking, especially me and the drummer Byron. I remember looking back at him sometimes like, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this set,
Yeah.
man. But it's a lot of fun to revisit that time, and it was a special time for the band. And we had been through a lot with Jason passing away, and not knowing whether to continue or not to keep doing it after losing him. And it was really an album where we had to kind of dig deep to decide uh, whether it was all worth it, because Jason
Right.
was such a huge part of why I joined the band. He lived around the block from me with his brother Justin. I'd known him since I was 8, 9 years old. And
Mm.
I basically joined the band because Jason was in a band with my friend, had joined a local band that was playing cover songs with my friend Davey Latter and Steve Kranza, who were guys I surfed with growing up.
Oh, wow.
And so they had all started a band, and I had seen him at a party, and I hadn't seen Jason in a while. I was like, dude, when are we going to start a band? And, kind of just hitting him up on what he was doing musically, because I saw he was playing bass and he had a cool Rickenbacker. And so I was like, I've always liked Jason a lot. And it wasn't until Fletcher came and see my band play at a local bar that he said the same thing. He's like, hey, man, we should, try and play some music together. We're looking for a singer. And I was like, man, if Jason's in the band, I'm all about it. So I just went by and played a few songs with them, and it sounded really cool. And that was, 34 years ago, or however many years it was.
That's
Yeah.
wild. Was Pennywise the first name that y'all came up with?
Pennywise was, I know from my situation, I was in bands and we went through about 20 names before we settled on one. I think they probably had some stuff before I got there, but it was our friend Steve Martin, who's done a lot of artwork for us over the years and was Jason's one of his best friends, his tight crew. Another surfer from the South Bay. He was the one that read the Stephen King book, It, and came to practice one day and said, "You guys got to be called Pennywise." And I had read the book,
Oh,
so I was really, really fired up on that because I, I had read the book and I was blown away on how heavy that book was. Just
very heavy book.
because I mean, to some people it seems like just another horror novel, but the whole premise of the monster making the kids confront their fears, their greatest fears, that was a big deal for us because we felt a lot of what was going on in the world was fear-based. People afraid of other people, afraid of other cultures, afraid of other ways of life, and people getting angry and directing all their anger and fear at all this uh, fear that was going on in their lives. And it just seemed to be the perfect thing because we were already writing songs that were about positivity and about politics and world affairs, and confronting fears is such a huge part of the band's message that Pennywise seemed to be the perfect title. So I hope Stephen King doesn't mind too much.
Dude, all these like literal decades, and I assumed that there was something else that gave y'all that band name. I never really talked about it a lot. I just thought like, no, there's probably just a coincidence that their name is the same as that character in the book. I kind of
Mhm.
think it's awesome because you can't see around me, but in front of my desk and then all around my wall, I've got horror movies everywhere. It's the only kind of movie I really watch. So Stephen
Cool.
King's been a big part of my life. My uncle had all of his books, and I don't know where it stopped, but it was like probably around the 2000s or later, but he had all of his books first edition hardback from his very first all the way through. I don't know if he still got them or not, but he was a collector of things like that, and he had comic books and such. But that's awesome that the name actually did come from the Stephen
Yeah,
King novel.
You know, it's strange how he chose it because uh, you know, to a lot of people, it comes from the term "pennywise pound foolish," which is a trait among people that I find goes on a lot. I meet a lot of people who have that unfortunate trait of where they don't get the big picture, but they're all about the details, and it just seemed like a perfect fit for this monster in the book. And then you know, I think that Stephen King, you know, regardless of what, you know, more serious authors will say, he's probably one of the best writers that we have of weaving a story. You know, he's him and John Grisham and people like that
Oh,
who write very plot driven fiction. You know, there's not a lot of other people better than them at keeping you just really engaged and keeping the action just going and going and going. And I think that's what people like about his novels. And a lot of times he has messages about death and morality and things that are woven into all of his tales. So, you know, I'm a huge fan of Stephen King. I read his book On Writing, which was a really big influence on me in my writing career. So, you know, I'm stoked to be a part of his world, even in a tiny little way.
that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why everybody knows who Stephen King is and everybody knows who John Grisham is. And it's not because they suck at what they do. I read a fair amount, or I did read a fair amount, like actual reading. I listen to a lot of audiobooks at this point. I've still got a fair amount of books. Most of what I buy at this point, or acquire, I should say, is based on like punk rock history and stuff that I'm trying to.
Yeah.
I have a really bad memory from like a head injury, so like I constantly have to reread things and write it down. So I have books that I can make notes and stuff on. My wife got me some things for Father's Day that was like I don't even remember telling her that I wanted, but when I got them, I was like, "This is amazing!" Like she's like, "You
Yeah.
definitely told me you wanted that." I'm like, "Awesome," but
Yeah.
do you do a lot of reading on tour when you're traveling around, or do you not have time for that?
Oh man, it's all I do. In fact, I've been wanting to put together a literary website, and I've had lots of plans to it. But my wife knows, and if I could turn the camera around, I'm just surrounded by books. You know, it's been my whole life. I was an English major at UCLA, and
Oh, nice.
when I come home from every tour, I've got a stack of books this tall, and like, look, I got a box right here that doesn't even fit in the. Here, I can show you some that I just got on the tour. Look at this. Wait, where is it?
Here,
Oh
there we
yeah,
go. Cults,
Cults
conspiracies. Ooh,
and Secret Society. I got this book about. Oh, there it is. Punk USA: The Roots of Green Day and the Rise and Fall of Lookout Records.
that's one that would probably be a pretty quick read for me. Like
Yeah. Let's see what
I,
else. Humanly Possible. This is a great book. Yeah,
dude,
I'm
you
a
got me
book.
super interested.
Yeah, I'm a book junkie, man.
This is the this is stuff that my wife got me. She picked up the day the country died, some anarcho punk stuff, and some
Wow.
early 80s stuff. I'm doing a lot of research on 80s stuff, and then Burning Britain, the history of UK punk, 1980 to 84, both written by the same guy, Ian Glasper. And then she picked up this. She just found it on like a 25-cent rack at a library. It was We Got the Neutron Bomb: The Untold Story of LA Punk. I don't know much about it, but I'm gonna.
I have it right there. I can see
Oh,
it from
nice.
here.
That's awesome. So I
Yeah,
was very excited to get that.
nice. Yeah, it's all that's what keeps me staying on the road, and it helps me you know, concentrate, and helps you know, usually read. I'm reading before I go to bed. I just got out of just was reading this. There's a really good book called In My Time of Dying uh that was written by the guy who wrote the movie The Perfect Storm.
Oh,
That's a
wow.
that's a really great book. But yeah, it's all about that, you know. It's all about you know, feeding your head, you know, and that's what we try and put into my lyrics and our songs and stuff, is just try and approach some topics that are important to the world, and you know, put a nice distorted guitar and a fast drum beat to it, you know.
Right. I've noticed that most really great lyric writers are also, you know, readers. to a pretty extreme degree. And
Yeah.
I spoke to Brad Logan for a little while, and he also was talking a lot about books and things. I'm more of a music junkie when I go out in places, but I'm not in a band anymore and hadn't been in a long time. I imagine if I was trying to write stuff, I would want to keep a very strong vocabulary, and then I'd want to keep up on just either history of the world or very much current, like, politics and current events, because
Yeah.
you want to write evergreen music that doesn't get stale.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's not even possible, though. Sometimes you have to talk about something that's happening right now, and it is what it is. But trying to make an album that's going to be good in 20 years,
Yeah.
25 years is a daunting task, I would imagine.
Yeah. And that's kind of how we went into Straight Ahead. Like I said, after we did the album Full Circle, we suffered such a huge loss, and personally, I felt like the band shouldn't really continue without Jason, because he was such a big part of our message and what we were all about, and it was such a tragedy losing him. And at that time, he had been out of the band and confronting some problems, but we never expected losing him like that. And to this day, I think it was a tragic accident rather than something intentional. But you can imagine coming out of that and just going like, how do we do this without Jason? How do we write an album, and how do we go about all this stuff? It was, at the time, we were over in Redondo Beach, and we were before this we were practicing in an old shipping container. Like you see people doing that these days, but we were practicing in an old shipping container that you get on a huge cargo ship.
That's awesome.
And you can see it in our video for Same Old Story. But in the same courtyard that we were in was the band Dawkin with Don Dawkin.
Wow, that's odd.
And so he started letting us use his place. He's like, "What are you guys doing in that container? You guys come here and use my studio." So
That's awesome.
We used his studio for a while, and then we had a place across the way from him open up. And so it was the first time we've ever had our own real studio to write in. And that summer, I remember just like, I really, really took it very, very seriously. And I started writing. I had written a couple songs on guitar before this. I wrote a lot of Full Circle on guitar.
Okay.
Almost half that record I wrote the words and music for. But this one I really kind of made an effort. And there's songs on there that are, I completely did on my own in the garage, and songs like My Own Way of Life, My Own Country, Watch Me As I Fall, and then Alien. All those I wrote in the garage, and especially the song Alien was such a strange one, because it really came from, I think if you look at that song in particular, out of our whole career, that's the one that doesn't really sound like a Pennywise song. It's much slower.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, it's much slower, but it was a result of how despondent I was feeling in the garage by myself, trying to write songs and thinking of everything that had happened with Jason, and how the world just felt like a really cold place. It didn't seem fair what happened to him, and so I wrote this like terribly down, depressing song and with the idea that if aliens were ever to visit this planet, they should probably turn around and find somewhere else to go, because this place can be pretty dark and tragic. And so I wrote this song, and kind of towards the end, I showed it to the guys, and I'm like, you guys aren't going to want to play this song, but I wrote it, and here it is. And Fletcher was like, no, dude, that's a good one. We should do that. We should try it. So we ended up putting that one on there. But before that, we had really, taken the opportunity to have this new studio and work on a lot of songs. And Fletcher had a ton of songs on guitar, and I'd put lyrics to his songs, and I brought in my songs. And I especially think on the Straight Ahead album, because we had that new studio, and Byron is just really good when I have a song or Fletcher has a song of like, especially back then, he could just intuitively know what we wanted and play something really cool in it, like a song like I wrote, like My Own Country,
Ooh, love that
which,
one.
yeah, in fact, I found my demo of it. I want to put it online or something, but you can see the difference of me playing with the drum machine, but having that chopping style of, of the feel of the song, and then have the difference of it with a drum machine, and then when Byron gets it, it
Right.
becomes so much more energy and urgent. And then when it comes to writing the lyrics for stuff like that, that's a perfect example of like when I wrote My Own Country, it was meant to be kind of a satire of what was going on in the political world. And I know the feeling of a lot of us out there. You kind of think like, man, if I could run this country, or if I could run the show, this is what it would look like. And Fletcher always jokes from the stage, like, well, if it was our world, it'd be free beer for everyone, and it would be a punk rock dream come true, of just bands and beer going on all the time. But the idea of that song, and a lot of my writing was being like, of how would the world look if we didn't have all these corrupt leaders and inept leaders everywhere ruining it for the common people, and all these people who are so leveraged by corporations and by secret money, and all these different agendas that we as regular working people have no say in. And it's so the song was meant as a satire. I think, not, I'm pretty sure Clinton was in office at that point, but and I think he was going through all the Lewinsky stuff at the time, and I put in there, and then the same thing was going on in the British Parliament. They were having all these scandals, sex scandals, and stuff like that, and that stuff still goes on today. I mean, look at
Oh,
what's
for
what's going
sure.
on recently, and so I put in that song of about all the salacious stories going on in politics around the world, of like, getting these people, for us to take them seriously when they're so corrupt, and having all these scandals going on. And it's like, how can you have any faith in your leadership when it's such a mess? and
Absolutely.
and that was kind of like, I felt that very strongly then. I feel it very strongly today, that those songs, like a song like My Own Country, is just as relevant back then. It's just as relevant today as it was back then, in that you're seeing the same type of thing going on, and us traveling so much, we're on tour however many weeks out of the year. And we get to see different cultures and how politics affects places like Germany and Italy and Spain, and in the UK and Australia, and they have similar problems that we do here. And I just don't think enough Americans are as well traveled as we are, to go out and see all these different countries and see that they're experiencing the same issues of immigration, of taxation, of corporates, getting a free ride, religions getting a free ride, and different things like this that are going on everywhere. And I'm fiercely proud of our band, and bands like, I mean, as much as NoFX is seen as, a fun band, and likes to kick up the dust and have a good time. They wrote some very politically
Yes.
astute songs, and that were very, aggressive, in their statements of what they were saying about world affairs, and I think that's something that the punk scene, especially the skate punk scene, doesn't get enough credit for. They want to think that we're all adrenaline junkies, and we're just out there going, middle finger to the world, and that, we just we don't care. The fact is that we care a lot, and we write songs that are satirizing all the corruption in the world and trying to get people to think about who they're electing into office, about what type of system they want to operate under, and how they want the world to be. And I think especially with Straight Ahead, we kind of crystallized that opinion. And there's some songs on there that are very much about world politics, but then there's a bunch that are about friendship politics and exactly what Jason went through, because at that time we also had various friends, and I'm sure a lot of people out there that listen to your show have a lot of friends struggling with drug addiction and mental illness, suicidal thoughts.
A lot.
Yeah.
I hit in about like 3 or 4 weeks. I hit 11 years sober. So I was there. I've lost, man, enough friends to where I couldn't really give you an accurate number. It's in the double digits. It's a lot of people. And then I have friends that have lost friends that I didn't even know. So I've seen people that I'm close to dealing with it from a different perspective. It's a disease, man. Like mental health is important. Drug addiction is a topic that people don't want. Just I don't want to deal with it. You have to, man. Especially when I noticed that it started becoming more important and more talked about once it hit like the suburbs, and like middle class families were dealing with like opiate addictions and stuff. And you're like, yeah, dude, stuff's everywhere, man. Like your doctors are just giving you this. I would even say some of them don't even understand what they're giving you. I feel like maybe they probably do, and they're incentivized to. I don't know. It'll go deep dark real quick, but
Yeah.
it's a gnarly epidemic, and Houston dealt with it for a long time with the syrup and stuff. So it's all the same shit. It's all the same stuff.
And that's Jason was writing about it before he passed away, about his friends, and it's unfortunately we all know the cycle of what happens, and that's what we're in a lot of his songs, and then a lot of our songs after he passed away, of dealing with a good friend that's going through it. And we all know what happens. Your friends retreat.
Oh yeah.
They don't want to hang out with you. And that's why we had different songs. Like Jason wrote the song Vices about his friend that was strung out, and he's like, where are you, man? Like, where have you been? I haven't seen you. When I see you, you're downcast, and you're escaping your problems in your own little den of drug addiction and alcohol addiction. And a lot of these songs are like desperate pleas for people to get out of that dark place that they're in, and like try and help them any way you can. And it's unfortunate that a lot of times that falls on deaf ears, and then people have serious problems confronting what's going on in their lives, and they may have a good support system around them, or they may not. And I think in some of our songs, especially on Straight Ahead, it was us dealing with that type of friction, and the pain and guilt and anguish that goes through losing some good friends. And so it was definitely a heavy album from start to finish. I think it has, Randy wrote a couple good songs on there that we fleshed out together, and Fletcher has a bunch. I have a bunch of songs on the record. I think it's about 2 songs too long, but but I think there's, the one thing it's always bugged me is the people out there that try and criticize bands like us, or Good Riddance, or Bad Religion, or different people, that every song sounds the same, and
Bro.
yet, you hear it all the time. And I guess there's a certain stance of that you can say, yeah, we have distorted guitars, we have really fast drums, and we have a guy yelling and singing stuff. But I think especially with Straight Ahead, if you go from a song like My Own Country to Running Out of Time to Straight Ahead, which has a more like hardcore kind of vibe to it, and then Alien, which is a total left turn,
That
and
one is
then
definitely a left turn.
and then ending the album with Badge of Pride, which has a totally different rhythm. You know, I'm always like, man, if you think that if you can look at our Straight Ahead album and think that every song sounds the same, you're not paying attention. I can look at it. I have every Ramones album ever written, and all those songs sound the same, and I love every one of them. You know, and same with a lot of other bands. It's not like we're just going to break out one day and do a salsa album. You know.
Well, there's two ways of looking at it, in my opinion. My personal thought on the whole thing is that I wouldn't say that everything sounds the same. I feel like you guys have found your sound, and then every album sounds, at least in my opinion, pretty dramatically different from the previous one. And you might have, like, I think that was it Land of the Free and then From the Ashes, they have a pretty similar sound, but then Land of the Free and Straight Ahead have a pretty similar sound, but then if you skip an album and you go from Straight Ahead to From the Ashes, they're very different to me.
Yeah.
And but even that's just three of the albums. Everything else I think has a very wide, you got a sound, of course you do, but I mean, would people rather you chuck out songs that maybe you're not familiar with, you're not good at playing, you're not comfortable with, and give subpar, like, just to be different? I don't understand that. I think people just like to complain,
Yeah.
and I think that you've developed a sound over the years that is something you're comfortable with. But it's just like, as an example, I used to say like all of the drill rap sounds the same to me, and it kind of does, right? But I am positive that if I spent a couple of years with that music, I'd be able to tell you all the differences in this dude's voice. This guy's got a different kind of producer, does these kind of beats. I just don't care to do it. So the people that complain are usually the ones that aren't fans, anyways. And
Yeah.
it's just like, man, this sucks. Just shut up if you don't got nothing nice to say, you know.
Yeah,
But
exactly. And you know, I think that we work within a certain style of music that we enjoyed when we were coming up.
right,
And it really was um, the bands from our scene here in the South Bay and Adolescents and Descendants, wherever they are, right back there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I see the poster over your shoulder. Yeah,
Yeah, Black Flag, Circle Jerks, and then Bad Religion's album Suffer just was a game changer. It just you know it wasn't so far from the same thing that a lot of the Southern California bands were doing or different bands in the country. It was just that it just had this immediacy and the message was so crystal clear. And even though you have Graffin's multisyllabic long word lyrics in there, it just, you got it right away. It was so immediate, and it was so melodic, and that's something that I think that is extremely important to remember about our our particular genre of music and this whole skate punk scene, or whatever you want to call it. It was meant for people who love to surf, skate, snowboard, and have a good time, and wild people, and
absolutely.
that was us. I grew up surfing big waves and skating and eating shit, and you have to have some courage to go do that stuff, and snowboarding and just being a hellraiser. It's like those are the anthems of our youth. And before that there was bands like the Beach Boys or David Bowie or Devo was another one, before the whole punk rock thing came about. These guys wrote songs that you could sing along to. They had hooks to them, and there's other forms of music where it's just, to me, it's just a lot of screaming and doesn't have any melodic hook in it. And there's some bands that I like in that realm, but I've always been a sucker for the bands like Descendants and Bad Religion, who who can't remember American Jesus or Hope,
Right.
or like, and sing along to that song. And that's why people come to our shows and sing along to every word, is because all these bands have not just one, but 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 albums of songs that have hooks in them that you can remember. And there's nothing better for me than, we've been playing this song that I wrote off our last album. The song's called Live While You Can. And to be playing that song in Europe to people that may not even speak the language that well in Prague, Czechoslovakia, and have everyone sing along to that song, is such it's just a testament that we still are writing songs that get people fired up and they want to sing along to them and come out and if you're still doing that as long as we have been around, I think you're still doing something right. So I think we can take some heat for playing a similar style of music, but I think within that genre, we try and write songs that people will be singing along to, and will be memorable for them.
I think you've done an excellent job with that. I also think that the better you are at something, the more people are going to talk crap. That's kind of something that's, especially in the world that I'm in, the bigger that my channel gets, the bigger the videos that I create are, and the more I put into them and the more views they get, the more people are going to talk shit. So if people are talking like that, it's likely a good thing, actually, because at least they're hearing your music. I have said this way before meeting you on record saying this, but I think that y'all are the best skate punk band ever. I like this. Like when I think of that style of music, I literally think of your band. And I'm like, no, it's got to be like kind of like this. Like if it doesn't sound, and it can still be punk, but it can't be like this particular style, in my opinion. And people have their opinions of that, but I think that it's odd that we're talking about straight ahead, because I think that that's like the perfect sounding album in this subgenre. Like it's in my top three, and my top three are probably Straight Ahead, Land of the Free is probably my favorite one, and About Time's really good. Really all of it's pretty great, but those are the three that I listened to probably the most. About Time, for whatever reason, just when I first heard it, it just stayed with me. I was like, this is a forever one. I just it's always going to be in rotation. But Land of the Free is great. I like the production though, the sounds that you got out of Straight Ahead, man. It sounds perfect, man. I fucking love the way that album sounds.
That's a testament to Darian Rundle. And we had made the switch where Total Access in Redondo Beach is where a lot of insane music was recorded. Starting with, they did some Black Flag recordings there. They did Dio there. All the way up to they did the Sublime record there, which is crazy. So we were doing our records there at Total Access and working with Win, and then this studio opened up a couple doors down, and we decided to do it ourselves, and with Darian running the board. And Darian comes from the metal scene, and he worked on those later Dio albums, and so he was really, really strict with us about, it's always a running joke of like, you do a thing like, and think that you've done a perfect job at playing a part or sing a song, and he'd be like, all right, are you ready to really do it now? Like, try it again, try it again, try it again, try it again. Like, he would do that over and over, and every time they'd play a song, all right, tune up. You have to tune up after. You don't play any song twice on the same tuning. You got to tune up every time. So he was really strict with us, and I think Fletcher, they worked a long time on getting sounds for the guitar, and we went through a lot of mics. So it wasn't just something that happened, by accident. We made that album sound the way it did, by a lot of effort, and thanks a lot to Darian for you know, he really put the pins on us to make sure that we delivered the best thing we could for these songs. And you know, it's I think anytime over my career of recording, there's always different personalities and different studios and different ways of doing anything. We're always really crazy in the studio. Like, if people could see what goes on in the studio for a Pennywise album, I mean, Fletcher does not hold back. I don't hold back at all. It's like, that song sucks, dude. Like, and that song's killer. My friend thinks that's the best song ever, and your friend's an idiot for saying that song's good. And, you know, it's straight up war, and screaming and people fighting with each other, and it's just chaos. And we need a strong producer in there that can hold us down and get the best thing out of it. Because the times when we haven't had that, I think those are the albums that I feel like we didn't get the best recording of the songs. And there's times where I look back and I'm just like so bummed out that I worked on a particular song or wrote a song, and we'll play it live and people love it. But then when I listen to it on the record, I go, man, we did not capture the spirit of that song in that recording. And I think that happened a lot after Pro Tools came in, because they tried to put us on a grid, and it just doesn't work when I've said before, like, Pennywise is like instead of a train on the tracks, we're like a hot rod jalopy, like bouncing down the road. We're playing fast 1 minute, we're playing slow and halftime, and we're, you know, it was the legendary O from the band Fluff, rest in peace O. He was the one that said to me when we were on the Warped Tour one time, he's all, man, like, who's recording you guys? Because you guys sound so much different live than you do on the record. And he meant it in a way, and this was later on in our career, he meant it in a way of saying, like, whatever happened on your last record, like, they didn't get it. You know, like, you guys are sound too contained and I know exactly what he was talking about. And it was when they put us on a grid for the first time of like, you know, it felt to me, and that was in the later records, of where it just started to feel really antiseptic. Like, you know, it's just like the songs were there, but the vibe and the soul of the song seemed to get sucked out of us into the computer.
It's like sterilized almost.
Yeah. So that's why I have a fond place in my heart for Straight Ahead and Full Circle, especially because they feel like songs that were all heart. You know, it was all us. You know, we kind of captured lightning in a bottle in those, in the sense that we were able to, you know, give the songs what they deserved, and you know, to this day, I think probably live we play more songs off Straight Ahead than almost any other album.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic record, man.
Yeah, you know, it's and you know, obviously, we weren't the only gang in town. There was a ton of stuff coming out at that time. It was a really fertile time for skate punk music. But I think when you use the term skate punk, I think the reason that we get put in that with that name applied to us is because it's totally honest. I grew up skating down my hill to school every day and skating to the beach to go surfing, and I built a ramp in my driveway out of plywood and 2x4s, and we would skate pools, and that's what we did. And when we would do this, we would listen to Circle Jerks, Descendants, Black Flag, you know, and so that's what it became. And if you look at that time, I mean, look at the Circle Jerks album. It's the cover photo is taken in the bottom of an empty pool, you know, you know, skating and surfing and that whole delinquent athletic scene was, it was such a departure, and it started in the 60s, but it was such a departure from traditional American sports of baseball, football, basketball, all that. You had all these people who were like, hey man, team sports suck. You know, I didn't make the football team, I didn't make the baseball team. What am I going to do? I can get on my skateboard, or I can get on my surfboard, or I can get on my skis or my snowboard and go have some fun on my own. And it just gives you this feeling of individualism and feeling like I don't care what other people are doing. I'm not part of the team. I'm doing my own thing, and you don't need friends to do it with you. You can go off on your own, and so I welcome that title of being a skate punk band. And when you look at another thing was huge for us that was going on at this time is you had Tony Hawk and Kelly Slater, Tony from the skate
Yeah.
scene and Kelly from the surf scene, taking the sport to these crazy new levels no one had seen before. And then Tony putting our music in his skate videos, and it started with Plan 9 and the questionable video. They put No Reason Why in their skate video, which ended up being a crazy influential video. I think you can see it online or different places, but that was such a groundbreaking video because they had us and the Beastie Boys, and you know, it was just all the stuff that people were listening to at the skate park and the skate contests, you know. And there's nothing more important to our band becoming popular than the reception that we received from the skate scene. Some people loved
Right.
us, some people hated us, but at the same time, we were there. There was
Absolutely.
we're not on all those skate videos because we were just got lucky. You know, it was putting out a lot of music and a lot of songs and firing people up. You know, and we listened to all kinds of music. I was a huge reggae fan in college
Yeah.
years, and I loved new wave music. I loved rockabilly. I loved everything out there, you know. And but this was the music that fit for us, you know, and who we were, and we were skate punks, man. You know, that's what we did.
There's a couple of bands. There's two bands specifically that when I think of them, I think California, like surfing, skating, just in general, like California. You guys in Rancid have these sounds that when I hear it, I don't care what the song is. I'm like, yeah, it'd be nice to be out there right now. Like I'm stuck down here in the South. I love my place, man. Texas is my favorite place in the world, but like, there's so much stuff going on in other cities that I don't get to travel a lot. But it's pretty cool to live like vicariously through people by talking to them on these videos and just becoming friends with people. It's pretty amazing. I'm again very fortunate. I don't want anybody to think that I'm being,
Yeah,
whiny or
no,
anything.
but I mean, people in all over different places in the world have responded to this type of music, and Rancid is a perfect example of a band, you know, that they're so well loved everywhere you go, you know.
For real.
And and there's bands from all over the place, you know, that have been influential. There's Canadian bands, there's Australian bands, there's bands from Sweden, you know, that couldn't be further away from the surf scene, and they produce such great bands. And I think that's a testament to bands like the Beach Boys and
Heck yeah.
you know, all these people who are all about melody, and you know, obviously the Beatles as well, the Rolling Stones, all those the early rock bands, and Chuck Berry and everyone else, you
Yeah.
know.
Love
It's
Chuck
it's
Berry.
just it's just I mean, the Ramones are Chuck Berry absolutely to a T. They are Chuck Berry with this more distortion and more velocity, but their chord progressions are Chuck Berry. I mean, let's
Oh
be
yeah,
honest.
for
And
sure.
and and you know, so that type of music has just always been playing really fast, tons of adrenaline and catchy music, hooks that get stuck in your head for hours after you listen to them. That's the stuff I like. When it comes to reggae, I love Marley, of course, but Steel Pulse and
Yeah.
all these great bands, and that's why I think later on bands like Sublime, you could tell that Bradley listened to LKJ and Oswald and all these great reggae bands, because he was very well versed in reggae culture, and he listened to KRS-One and hip hop culture,
Yep.
and he brought all that stuff together, and he listened to the Descendants and Bad Religion, so it's very cool to see all those genres represented. Even Pennywise we have a song that has a reggae intro. It's on the Yesterday's album. Jason wrote it. It's called She's a Winner. It's got a little reggae intro, but you can tell that we listen to all kinds of stuff. On our first record, there's on Word from the Wise, there's a song that is total Red Hot Chili Peppers. It's called Maybes, and I actually played bass on it because I could slap on the bass.
Nice.
Not very well, but I could do it. And Jason grabbed the mic and started rapping over my little funk beat that me and Byron were playing. And next thing you know, we had a song out of it. So as much as it sounds like we've been on this linear one track our whole career, we've tried to throw a few little bumps in the highway along the way.
Dude, I think it's very obvious when you can hear people that have an eclectic variety of stuff in their record collection. Like whenever, especially somebody like Bradley, that guy had a very large amount of different sounds in his music, but which I also think that's a slippery slope personally, but
Yeah. Oh yeah. When you try and do too much and you're just like, 1 minute you sound like Janis Joplin, the next minute you sound like Metallica, it gets a little crazy. And I think the genres got a little mixed up in the early 2000s that you didn't know. I mean,
oh dude, the 90s were crazy. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. The 90s were nuts like that. Everything sounded like a mishmash of everything.
Yeah, and also with the screamo emo stuff, you didn't know if you were listening to. It would go from Taylor Swift sounding vocals to Slayer. In the middle of one song, it's like, who are you? Which band are you? Are you a total pop band? Are you Cradle of Filth?
Well, there's, I mean, the lines, the further along we go, just as people that listen to music and are involved in this stuff, the blurrier the lines get. I'm literally working on a video about this new subgenre of oi music. It's called cold oi. It's like you mix oi with new wave instead of oi with reggae, and it's been coming out for quite a while in France, and it grabbed my attention, and I started digging and listening to stuff and doing research. The lines just get blurrier and blurrier, and it's okay though, man. People like what they like, and as long as you keep making quality. I feel like quality is the main, that's the main goal. You want quality. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I've got a couple of questions that I'd like to get an answer to, if you don't mind. One would be, what's up with the punk rock museum in that garage, dude? That thing is bananas. That's the actual garage y'all practiced in?
Yeah, that's all Fletcher. I mean, that is, I didn't even know it was happening till they were putting it in. That shows you how much he lets me know about what's going on. But no, we practice. It seems like the bigger that we got, the smaller our recording, our practice studio got, and that was in when we started out, we were playing in a single one-car clapboard garage. You could have knocked it over with a nice shove. It was just 2x4s and clapboard.
Wow.
And and covered in graffiti and in Fletcher's girlfriend's backyard. And that's what we ended up, 25 years later, we're still in a clapboard garage playing with a bunch of used shitty carpet on the wall. When I look at that carpet and I see people going in there, and I know I'm not sure if I think he took all of the carpet out of that place, but when I think of all the fucking everything that went on in that carpet cave, and all the smoke and spit and beer and every other bodily fluid that would be
Right.
drained out of a body during an hour-long practice session is inside that carpet. So I sure hope that they're doing a good job, or they got an air filter down there at the museum, because that thing is messed up.
Well, I saw it, and when I was looking at it, and then I can't remember who. I think it might have been the singer of Less Than Jake that I was following around at first, and I think that's who it was. He mentioned that was y'all's, like it was like really from the garage, and it kind of blew my mind. And I thought it was such a unique idea of a thing to transport and put in this building, because you can really kind of feel the energy when you're in there and looking at it and stuff. And it's interesting. And I've seen a bunch of videos of bands playing in that room, and I don't know. I think that they did a really good job with what they're doing in Vegas right now. I think that that's a pretty spectacular place. What does it feel like to see that on all these videos and see people jamming out in this room where you clearly have spent a lot of your time?
That's why I said it's really weird, because I'm like,
Yeah.
man, do they know what's going on that carpet? But no, it's a trip, it was completely unexpected, and like I said, I didn't know it was happening until Fletcher was driving the materials out there.
That's so
He
crazy.
he's always kept me on a need to know basis on the stuff he's up to, but I think people dig it, and obviously people love the museum, and I'm stoked it's going well. And I still haven't been out there yet. I'm so busy with either touring or my family stuff or Beachside Festival or various stuff I'm working on. It's hard for me to just run out to Vegas for a weekend, but I plan to get out there soon, and maybe one day you'll see us playing in that place.
Dude, that'd be awesome. I took my first vacation out of Texas my whole life last October and went out there. So I was very excited to go check that out. Yeah, that place was pretty incredible that they have the instruments in a room where you can like go like hold them, and there's like it's an energy that I was feeling. Some people would be like, ah, it's lame, but I've been doing this my whole life just like you have, and I didn't get the successful band thing going on, but I did play some music, and I have a small little label. So this is as important to me as it is anybody else that's, you
Yeah.
know, going to travel to go see that place. So I went and we ended up having plans to go once, and we went 3 times in a 6-day vacation. It was that. I mean, you can go in there and just keep learning. And if you're into it for history and you want to just see some amazing stuff, I don't know where else you're going to find that much stuff concentrated like that. It's pretty spectacular. But so I know you got to get going here in a few minutes. I would
Mhm.
love to hear just how you got into punk rock. How did it start for you? What was your origin story?
Well, coming from Hermosa Beach, it was kind of right in our own backyard. But I think the first thing that kind of really piqued my interest, looking back on all of it, is that I remember seeing in right when the Sex Pistols album came out. I remember seeing an article in the LA Times, and going, "Oh, that looks interesting. I wonder what's that all about." I was kind of the class clown in school, the person that would talk back to the teachers all the time, and I've always said that Sex Pistols sounded like someone talking back to a teacher. That sounds like a smartass, and someone not afraid of getting in trouble, and so I was like really drawn to that. And then, like, literally right at the same time, it seemed like in a very, very short amount of time, it was like Sex Pistols. And then I got Road to Ruin by the Ramones. And then I started hearing about this band Devo. And then the culture around us started to react to that. And we grew up in a very typical suburban, middle class, working class uh, city here that had a high school that, it was the same as any other high school in the country, except that we also had surfers and skaters. We had your jocks, your burnouts, your socias and your nerds and all that, but we also had surfing and skating and that delinquency going on. So all these people started to see us, you know, shaving our heads and mohawks and and they started calling us, for lack of a better term, they started yelling Devo at you. You'd be like, "Yeah, you're Devo," you know, and you'd get your ass kicked, you know, like you'd have to run from the older guys. They didn't like it that we were dressing weird, and you know, you had to conform to, you know, the older guys' way of doing things, or else you'd get your ass kicked. You know, it was a lot of fights went down in our town, and but I just remember just being so stoked after listening to and hearing something, and my sister had brought home the Bowie album, David Bowie's Aladdin Sane, and I really like the song Panic in Detroit and all that type of early proto punk stuff with
Yeah.
Queen, you know, and all that type of music that was kind of the bridge between punk and rock music.
Right.
And so that's where it happened, just being in the right place at the right time and reading about what was going on in the UK and in New York. But then the biggest thing kind of happened overnight, it felt like, was that all of a sudden we found out there was this band called Black Flag that was playing. And I'd see flyers on telephone poles and be like, wow, that looks heavy. Like, I wonder what that is. And then going to the local record store and buying their little 45 that they had, their little single that had Nervous Breakdown and Fix Me and all that on it. And then just, I'm like, these guys are from Hermosa Beach, you know, seeing that on the label, and that just blows your mind apart. That's like, and then next thing you know, it's Descendants and the Circle Jerks, or flip that, Circle Jerks and then the Descendants. You know, all of a sudden, all this amazing skate punk was coming out of our 1 square mile hometown. So that's how it came to me. It kind of grew up in my backyard.
That's amazing. That's got to be pretty incredible to be around that group of musicians. Just to be like you said, when you're at a record store and you pick up an album, whatever album, and you look at it, and then you find out like, oh crap, this came from my town. Like, there's a
Yeah.
couple of records that are from Houston, like recent albums in the last like 10 years that every time I talk about them, I get like this swell of pride because they're all from here, and I'm like, these are like my friends, dude. You should check this out. These are known this dude 20 years, man. Listen to this. It's really, really good. And
Yeah.
it's an amazing feeling.
Oh man, I on the street that I lived on, that I would go to the beach every day, was Janet Housden lived, and she ended up playing drums for Red Cross, which was Greg Hetson's band. That and The McDonald Brothers, you know, and Red Cross, they're still playing, you know.
That's wild.
And then literally Greg Ginn from Black Flag, his the house that he grew up in, when they say it's a stone's throw, I could literally throw a rock and hit his house. So it's not like these people were like lived up in the hills or somewhere far away. They literally lived around the block from us.
Dude.
Milo lived, you know, a couple streets over, and Bill from Descendants lived a few blocks over, and you know, these are all just concentrated in this very small area where all these bands came out of. So yeah, just like you, I'm fiercely proud of our heritage that we've gained for this little area of surfers and skaters playing skate punk.
Dude, that's so awesome, man. What a beautiful story. Man,
Yeah,
I would say that wraps this up beautifully right here, man. Thank you so, so much for hanging out with me a little while, man. I love your band, and I always will. I hope I'm over here talking about this shit in 25 more years. I assume on all the major anniversaries, I'll be talking about your stuff. So
right on. Well, thank you. I
thank you,
appreciate you
man.
guys talking about it. I wouldn't have even known we were having an anniversary with you guys.
That's awesome, man. Well, dude, have a good time at practice. Travel safe, and hopefully I'll see you down here in Texas one of these days.
You will. All right. Thank you.
All right, brother. Thanks, Jim. Later, man.
All right. Bye.